More developments today in the case against 11 people accused in the Transnet state capture case, now postponed until April. The 11 include the former CEO of Transnet, Brian Molefe, another former accused, Siyabonga Gama, the former Chief Financial Officer, Anoj Singh, the former Acting Chief Financial Officer, Garry Pita, the former Group Treasurer, Phetolo Ramosebudi, and the Regiments Capital shareholder and Trillian boss, Eric Wood. They now face more than 50 counts of fraud and corruption. Our reporter Erin Bates was in court today. She's here with us now. Erin, good afternoon to you. What happened in court?
Well, one thing that emerged is how comprehensive the paperwork involved in this matter is. And, of course, that postponement until next year. So beyond that, not much. But important to really hone in on the documents involved. The ID spokesperson, Siyabonga, detailed that and what this really means for the accused as they work with their lawyers. Let's have a listen.
Today, the accused actually told court through their legal representative that they have been furnished with the docket in order to best prepare the electronic version therein. They've also been further provided with extensive information that they now need to prepare and come back in April to tell us whether they require further and better particulars or whether they're ready to then have the matter be transferred to the High Court for pre-trial to take place.
We understand Transnet, one of these sort of areas where there was a large amount of corruption during the state capture era. How much money is involved?
Well, the initial figure sort of tied to this case was around 90-something million rand, but now that's increased. And also important to note that the actual club loan, which is one of the key pieces of the state's case and is sort of the center of the financial shenanigans that were going on, was some $2.5 billion US. But let's listen to what Siyabonga had to say on the money front.
From inception of this matter, we have been saying that we do have a case. You would have seen that the value therein has ballooned to over 398.4 million in this regard, looking into the various transactions that have taken place.
So we all remember the evidence at the Zondo Commission. There were lots of findings around Transnet about people like Brian Molefe and Siyabonga Gama. What's the sort of scheme? What happened?
So Transnet got those 1064 locomotives, the 1,064 locomotives, and they had to work out how to finance it. And here hangs the tale, because that's where somehow, even though it was initially McKinsey who was doing the work on crunching the numbers and figuring out how to get the loan in order to make this happen, Regiments got a shoe in. And Trillian got a shoe in, and somehow some of that money on the state's case allegedly made its way to the Guptas. And so the question really is, what was going on and why did the figures balloon to the point where the state's case is now at almost 400 million rand sort of pegged to this? And so the finances are really critical here. That speaks to why there's so much documentation involved in this case. You know, we heard that there are thousands of pages that the accused counsel will now need to go through, and they're doubtful that they'll actually be able to do all that reading fast as lawyers can read by the 20th of April next year. So the state, the NPA's ID, is anxious to get a trial date for this. It is at this point, Stephen, the ID's biggest case in terms of accused number, 18 if you include the companies. And I think important to note here as well, often with state capture and the Zondo Commission, we heard, well, what about the private sector? It takes two to tango. You can have, skew people, crooked people in the state and in SOEs, but if they don't have people to participate with them and hit the dance floor, nothing happens. And so this case, we really do see private sector players involved, and obviously huge reputational damage for McKinsey, who's tried to patch up its reputation with some sort of reparations for what happened.
And then other organizations were sort of involved in finding evidence. I mean, OUTA's been quite busy in things like this. We saw people bringing evidence at the Zondo Commission. How important is that?
So OUTA was critical to this case, and the ID has conceded that or recognized it, and I'd previously spoken to Nyhonyha about their role in providing submissions. It wasn't only just doing paperwork. They analyzed the Gupta leaks, and we know the hard drive from the Gupta leaks, or which held the Gupta leaks, has been verified through the work of the Zondo Commission and its forensic team. But they also heard from whistleblowers, they spoke to witnesses, and in fact, interestingly, one of the things that Nyhonyha highlighted to me around this Transnet matter is that some of the wheeling and dealing around the club loan had sort of stalled, but then cabinet ministers and then President Jacob Zuma visited China, and interestingly, after that visit, the loan which was being secured with China Development Bank suddenly was gaining some impetus and momentum again. And so obviously he's not an accused and he's not raised in any of the submissions we see from the ID at this stage, but there was a much bigger political context, as with many of the state capture cases that involve SOEs.
I mean, Brian Molefe really has some charges against him after the Zondo Commission now, and as far as I know, hasn't actually paid back his pension to Eskom either, to the Eskom Pension Fund.
No, and in one of the previous appearances in this matter, he was effectively there with a begging bowl saying he didn't have the means to pay for his counsel and was looking for some help on that front, which is quite remarkable when you look at the figures involved.
Erin Bates, thank you very much indeed, our reporter who was in court today. Another